Hey there. A lot of people have asked me recently about my experience at Techstars New York, which I was a part of, which recently concluded. Um, and a lot of people had asked me what my experience was and what I felt about it. And I'd like to share my candid thoughts on being a part of this accelerator. So, first off, for those who don't know, Techstars New York is one of the best accelerators in the world, very hard to get to. And apparently, according to the managing director, Jordan, it's even harder to get into Techstars New York than it is to get into Harvard, which is glad and which is what I told my parents because they were upset that I couldn't get into Harvard. But this is definitely a good sign to start with. So I wanted to share my thoughts on it and what the different process was throughout the journey and basically what the takeaway was. So it all began with the selection process, which was, I think, a 3-stage interview where I got to meet with Jordan, Andrew, and Elliot, who were managing this at the time. And the selection process was pretty straightforward. And I did, me along with the other cohort companies who were part of Techstars. Later, I found out that almost all of us were rejected multiple times from different Techstars, from different accelerators like Y Combinator and so on. And so this was, let us say, it's not our first rodeo in terms of finding out or being part of an accelerator. But one difference that I saw in the interview process or selection process for Techstars New York versus the others was that they were more interested in knowing about me as an entrepreneur, as a person, as opposed to necessarily spending a lot of time in financial forecasts or business model and stuff like that, which I found very interesting. And after getting selected, they also made it very clear that they were betting on us as entrepreneurs, especially at this stage. And we are completely free to change our business model if we feel that is best for the business or if things don't work out. And I've seen a lot of startups pivot during the course of Techstars, which I think is a very robust sign to give that kind of freedom, to give that kind of flexibility to entrepreneurs, which I think is pretty unique, instead of having to force us to follow certain patterns or follow certain preconceived notions that they may have. So that is one of the best selection process. And I was very surprised to have been selected. Of course, after a lot of rejection, as an entrepreneur, you face a lot of rejections, but I was so glad to have been selected. And the way they broke the news was that they, out of the blue, they're like, "Hey, Akhil, we'd like to meet up with you one more time." And I'm like, "Oh no, maybe they want to reject me face to face," which again could have been a nice thing in the earlier cases. So they call me and they're like, "Hey, and all three of them were there, like, "Hey, Akhil, so tell me about your business." I'm like, this is the third interview. Now you're asking me about Xena. But then, yeah, we discussed. And then I got a sense that they were really curious to know how I responded, what I really thought. And if I believe that they were looking for entrepreneurs who were coachable. So the selection process went really well. And they finally said, "Let's do it. You're selected. Congratulations." And so that was probably one of the most pivotal moments of my life. As an entrepreneur, you face so much rejection, but to actually get selected, to actually get chosen, and to have other people place their trust in you and your business and your life's work, that is just really heartening. So I got selected, and the next stage was the orientation, where they decided to take all the entrepreneurs upstate New York to a corporate resort where we had someone dig really deep into each of our psyches, do teamwork exercises, and we were explicitly told during the course of the day we were not supposed to spend time in business, which was crazy considering all the entrepreneurs who were there. They're extremely talented, creme de la creme, the best entrepreneurs, of most hardworking people I've ever seen, and to tell them not to focus on sending emails every 2 minutes is just crazy. And which was, I think, a good break for us. And during the course of the orientation, we got to know each other better. And again, surprisingly, in our cohort, everyone really mingled with each other. Everyone came to know each other at a personal level. And I think that retreat made all the difference in the world. And I think that is a great decision for them. I'm not sure of any other accelerators which do that. So that was a big plus. And then talking of the other cohort companies, there were 14 different companies selected. All of them have a tech component to them. All of them extremely successful for the stage they're in. they've raised different kinds of money. Some of them have revenue, some of them pivoted, some of them did extremely well. But the common thread across all of them was that they were extremely resilient, they were very adaptable, and they were very coachable. And I think that's the common thread that I saw. So if any of the companies are planning to apply for Techstars, at least Techstars New York, I would say that as long as you're coachable and adaptable, you have a very good chance of getting in, regardless of maybe not as much importance for your business or your business model. But as an entrepreneur, if they see that in you, I think you have a good chance of getting selected. And speaking of the three taskmasters, Jordan, who's a managing director, and Andrew was a principal, and Elliot, who were working with them. And then we had additional support in the form of Julia, who was operations associate, Mike, who helped us with UI UX design, and a fantastic team. Especially Julia, I would like to give a shout out to her. I think she did 99% of everyone's work. She coordinated everything. She coordinated all the meetings. She worked for each and every startup. She gave it her everything. She used to come early, I think 7 in the morning, go probably 12 at night. She was the most hardworking, and along with Mike, who helped a lot of us prepare our pitch decks, a lot of prepare our websites and so on. So he was very kind as well. And I think other thing about Jordan, Elliot, and Andrew is that they took they saw themselves as coaches as opposed to necessarily mentors or in the traditional sense. And I think they really wanted to coach us. They wanted to know us personally. They wanted to know what our fears were. They wanted to know how they can motivate us. Instead of telling us exactly what to do, they actually they pulled it out of us, and that kind of made all the difference. I actually read Jordan's book. It's called Coaching Up. It basically highlights his experience in the field of sports as an athlete, and eventually as a coach, and now as a mentor and investor. I think he's truly inspirational for us to work with Jordan, Andrew, and Elliot. They have had their own journeys. Very kind, very emotional, very loving group of people who I couldn't have asked for better leaders for the cohort that we were a part of. And then eventually during the course, we worked together. We came to know each other better, all the cohort companies, and then eventually it led to the demo day, which was a huge milestone. I don't know how they pulled it, but we got to do the final presentations at the Google's office in Pier 57 in New York. It was an amazing experience. It really felt like it was, I've pitched in different places, but I really felt special being there, standing there in front of the lights, the mics, and about 300-500 people looking at you. It was quite an experience, and it made everything real. And I'd like to give kudos to the entire Techstars team for making it happen. It just provided us a ramp, at least a emotional ramp, to kind of think of our startup as no longer just a small software or with a few customers, but actually a real business with huge potential. So demo day was great, and so that's kind of what my experience has been, long and short of it. It was probably one of the best decisions of mine as well as my cohort companies' lives, I would imagine. People often say that being part of an accelerator, usually have to give out a hefty chunk of your equity. You have to kind of it could be considered as expensive, and maybe not a lot of startups might choose it, but I think it was totally one of the best decisions that I've made. The networks, the mentors, everything, all the kind of support that I've received, I don't think I would have received it anywhere. And I'm a very proud Techstars New York alum, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank everyone who were part of it, the mentors, so many of them, so many support system sponsors, and just people who genuinely care and are willing to give their time to you with expecting nothing in return. That is pretty unique for all of us. And so that was been my experience in Techstars. Overall great, had a great time, and it did wonders for Xena Intelligence.